This is the Palin Update on Sarah Net Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
There's a good Senate candidate in Maryland, Dan Bongino, and he recently gave a speech about that. These are just symptoms of a failed ideology.
Governor Palin mentioning Dan Bongino and praising one of his recent speeches. An outsider, Bongino is looking to shake things up in Maryland, where he's running for U.S. Senate. And today, Bongino, who has served as a Secret Service agent and an NYPD police officer, is with us on the Palin Update on Sarah Net Radio. Dan Bongino, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So Governor Palin mentions you this past week in Houston at a big Ted Cruz rally. Did you see this coming? And what was it about that speech of yours that you think caught her attention?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a pleasant surprise. I was actually in Carroll County, Maryland, at a fair, and my phone just started ringing off the hook, and a number of local supporters of the governor called me and said, hey, we were listening online to a speech, and she heard your speech. And ironically enough, I've given quite a few speeches over a year and a half. A lot of them have been videotaped. That one was one I just was extemporaneous. It was just off the cuff. Someone had asked me to get up and speak in Frederick County about what I thought the problem with government was. A friend of mine was sitting there with a video camera, taped it. It wasn't anything done professional, or it wasn't pre-planned. They plugged it on the net, and that was it. It just hit the net, and I think we're up to 9,000 views or something in the last 2 days. So it was incredible. I don't know how she saw it, but I guess she liked it. That's a good thing.
I thought it was a great speech. You say off the cuff. I was going to say honest, raw, and inspiring. Let's talk about it a little. The overall message is what? That liberty is under attack, and it is we the people who know best, not big government?
The overall umbrella message here is don't get lost in the granular arguments, folks. This is a bigger battle than I think the average citizen thinks it is. What we're fighting in this specific election is not a Clinton Democrat. We're not fighting a JFK Democrat. We're fighting an entire ideology that, yes, along the lines of what you just said, your personal economic liberty, which, make no mistake, is your political liberty, there's no difference, is at stake. That is what this is about. These folks were fighting and playing for keeps, and I don't want to be Manichaean about it or have this apocalyptic view. We're the United States. We fixed worse problems before. This isn't. We don't want to start a civil war out here. We don't handle our problems that way. But we are battling a very dangerous political ideology, and I think we need to really rally the troops here, and that's what that speech was meant to do, and it apparently succeeded. So thank you to all that listened and enjoyed it.
You talk about taxes and Obamacare, and you say that's not the problem, but the symptoms. Can you explain that?
Right. Well, perfectly. The tax rate. In other words, they're going to give you a tax rate, and they're going to say, well, that's not a fair share. Well, what is a fair share? And I ask you, how did you come to that number? I mean, they want to up the top marginal tax rate to 39.6%, not counting a number of investment taxes. Well, where did you come about that number? They're going to say, well, the Clinton era, that was the Clinton era tax rates. Well, that's not accurate. The Clinton era, that may have been the Clinton era tax rates, but the Clinton era boom was a result of a cut to the capital gains tax rate. Why am I telling you all this and getting lost in the wonkish data? I'm telling you all this because these folks know this. They are not stupid. They know this. They are very bright people. You may not agree with them, but they know this. They understand it. They are deceiving you. They are not telling you the real story, which again goes back to my point. This is not about taxes to them. It is about spending your money. And the only way to spend your money is to tax your money. There's no other way around it. And you will never get a fair share rate because your fair share is everything, folks. Everything. That's why you'll never get a number there. And it's a bigger ideology. That was not, and I use the Clinton analogy here because Clinton, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative Republican, always will be, but there were some good things, welfare reform, the cut in the capital gains tax rate, and I think we as Republicans have to be careful to defend ideas and not parties. I've always been an outsider to politics, and that's to both parties, and we have to defend ideas. Some things we've done as Republicans are not necessarily good things either. Lower taxes, patient-driven healthcare, school choice, these are the ideas we defend. We do not defend parties. We have to be very careful there, and that's been my impetus to run from the start, as we get lost in partisan politics too much.
It sounds simple what you just said as far as they know this about what they're doing, but there's a lot there, and I'm glad you said that, because you look at John McCain in 2008, you look at Governor Romney this time around, they always seem to preface a lot of the comments about President Obama with, well, he's over his head, or in McCain's case, well, he's a nice guy, this, that, and the other thing. Isn't it time more of the leaders, especially those running for the higher offices, talk in the straight talk that McCain claimed would come, but that Palin delivered, and really call them out on what they're doing? Like you just said, sir, they know exactly what they're doing.
Listen, I'm a nice guy, too, okay? I live in Maryland. I fielded ground balls when I was a kid until I lost fingernails. The Orioles never gave me a shot, not one day. What am I telling you? The world's not a fair place. It's not. The world's a meritocracy. Those who work hard, study the hardest, and develop the hardest calluses in their hands are going to get ahead, folks. And I'm sorry to tell you that. We will always keep a basic social safety net. We will always take care of the most unfortunate among us. We're the most benevolent country on earth, and never apologize for that. But stop with this nonsense. We are not a country of takers. We're a country of makers, and yes, we have to call it what it is and forget the straight talk express. It's time for real straight talk. They know what they're doing. Let's stop pretending that this is just some aw shucks moment and they fell into Obamacare. Everybody, including my opponent who voted for it, of course, Ben Cardin, Senator Obama at the time, they all understand. They know what they're doing. The Obamacare legislation, the Affordable Care Act, is not about health care. It is about control of the healthcare system. Why do you think they implemented these boards, the Independent Payment Advisory Board, a board of 15 wizards, appointed, not elected, for 16 years? I use that term wizards loosely, obviously. You have the Preventative Services Task Force. Do you think these boards are there to give you more control over your healthcare? What's the point? The point is it's not about healthcare. It's about control. This is a very dangerous ideology. It is failing everywhere it's been tried. Folks, if this system worked, the Greeks would be lending us money, not begging us for it right now. We are watching the utter failure of this ideology in live time in front of our very eyes. And what are we doing? We're replicating it. What is wrong here? Are we blind? This is very dangerous. And I really fear for my daughter. We can't just wipe this generation out. I say that at the end of the speech. It's our obligation to defend our children's chance at prosperity. That's our obligation. And if you're not doing something, and you're not volunteering for a campaign, and you're sitting on your butt, I used a different word in the video, unfortunately.
more straight talk.
A little more straight talk. But if you're sitting on your butt, I'm sorry, you're part of the problem. And you are whistling past the graveyard.
And this isn't hyperbole. You feel an entire generation, in other words, your kids and my kids, will be left holding the bag if we don't come through in November.
I am absolutely sure of it. I spent my entire life studying macroeconomics. My entire life I've been fascinated by this subject. The writing is on the wall. It is all there. And again, I don't want to sound apocalyptic because, God, I love this country. I would have died for the President of the United States in a heartbeat and proudly done so. That had nothing to do with political parties. We are the United States. We're not some banana republic. We fix our problems at the ballot box, and thank God we do. But we are in a lot of trouble, and I don't want to be the prognosticator here. And even the media is blindly going along with this. And we are printing our way into a debt, or depending on what viewpoint you take on it, or out of a debt apocalypse, inflating away the value of our money, all of our assets. We can't build anything here because our corporate tax rates are the highest in the world. Our real estate market is collapsing. There is the very core of what this country was built on is collapsing. And the time to turn around, right the ship, make a U-turn is right now. It's not tomorrow. It is now. It is now. You have to do something right now. All of your listeners, you have to do. Don't talk. Talk is cheap. I hope you love my speech, but talk is cheap. Action changes the world.
You mentioned President Reagan, and you say he knew his limits. That really caught my ear. Does that mean Obama does not know his?
He doesn't understand. Thomas Sowell is my favorite author, philosopher, economist. I think he's one of the most brilliant men of our time.
And Governor Palin's a huge fan, too.
Sowell, I've read it all. I've read his college thesis. I've read all his material. He's really been a lodestar for me.
She brought his name up a few months ago when they asked about a possible vice presidential candidate.
Oh, he's fantastic. If I was running for president rather than U.S. Senate, I'd pick him in a heartbeat. But he understands that he is limited, I consider him the most brilliant economist of our time, and he will tell you he doesn't even know as much about your personal economic situation as you do, with all of his academic awards, all of his degrees, all of his brilliance. He can't tell you how much that Ford Escape in your garage is worth to you. He can't even adequately price one baseball card. He understands that. Barack Obama has what Sowell calls this vision of the anointed. They've anointed themselves, these geniuses of economics, of medicine, of education, to rule over your lives, put out these edicts, and to take the control away from you and make the locus of control them. And that was the point of my speech. You are forfeiting the power to control your own life through the tax code, through the healthcare legislation, and through the education system. Do you want to make your own choices, or do you want to pay someone else to make choices for you when they have absolutely no knowledge of the value of those items to you? I mean, on its face, it's absurd, but we do it with the belief that these government bureaucrats know more about your life than you do. It's really a shame, and it really viscerally bothers me. Even that's where that passion comes from. It hurts me inside.
What about this class warfare game the left has been playing in D.C. and in your state as well? I mean, we've seen this not only from class, but pitting race against race and religion. Have you ever seen such divisiveness, and is this the path we're going on, that you mentioned that we're in trouble if this is a re-election in November?
Sure, a great question. And you have to ask yourself again, because these are not stupid people. They're not ignorant. Why? Why are they doing this? It's not random. There's a tactical, strategic component to this. The only way to sell you on the idea that walking over to your neighbor's house and stealing his new Anderson windows and putting them in your house is a good idea is to get you to believe that your neighbor somehow got those Anderson windows at your expense. No, I use these real-world analogies to paint a picture for you, to paint a picture of what you're hearing, but make it real. Let's make it bleed. It's absurd on its face. When you see your neighbor repairing their home or doing a big home remodeling, you know, there's always a degree of envy. Envy is human. I live in a middle-class neighborhood. You get a guy who really puts on a nice extension. You say, wow, that'd be great if I could have that. But at no point do I say, let me rip that extension off and put it on my house. I've created crime. I've then devalued his home. People don't want to move to the neighborhood because they think something's going to happen because there's this theft going on. And you say, well, that makes sense. Well, that's what the government right now, the liberal ideology, is telling you is legitimate, that the evil rich, the so-called, one percenters, as they've been called, or wherever you want to categorize it, they've engaged in some zero-sum economics where they've gotten rich at your expense. That's not how economics works. That is a fundamental lie and a misunderstanding of basic economics. I heard a great example one time. If I had a pair of tickets to some popular boy band, right? They mean nothing to me. I don't listen to that kind of music. I'd rather throw them out. I would never go to that. But if there was some teenager running around the neighborhood with a bagel, and I'm hungry, and I see her on the corner and say, hey, how you doing? I'll trade you the bagel for these boy band tickets. We are both better off. No one lost. I don't want those tickets. She loves the band. I was hungry. I get the bagel. Everybody's happier. That's how economics works at a fundamental level. It's the only way to make free market economics work. I can't sell you an iPad if you don't want it. You are better off for it, or you wouldn't have bought the product. To make it out that these folks, the successful amongst us who have developed value-added products, we all choose to buy because they make our lives better. To act as if they have somehow stolen from people and made society worse off is a lie. It's the fundamental lie. It's the big lie of liberal economic policy, and they know it. They have to make a victim out of you. If they don't, you will never believe the foolishness of what I just told you. That's the only way to do it.
You do realize you're going to have a line of girls with bagels thinking you have One Direction tickets on you, right?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know who One Direction is. I may be a little out of touch. I'm 37, but campaigning's hard, so I haven't been out there. But yeah, that's the best example I've ever heard. It was a professor on a economics lecture I was listening to, and it was brilliant. In that one little story, he explained basic economics, and it all makes sense.
Well, listen, you mentioned your passion and why you get fired up, and it's a great thing to see, and I think that's why the speech really resonated with us, with Governor Palin, especially when we see so much apathy out there with a lot of folks who don't even know what's going on, which in some cases is worse than people who vote differently than you. But I thought it was tremendous. Maybe the Orioles and Ravens should play it as a pump-up video instead of clips from Hoosiers or whatever they do. But real quick, let's talk a little bit about you and your race specifically. You were a Secret Service agent. What an incredible and unique background. How does that give you perspective for running for office? Has anybody ever done this before?
No, not at the federal level. I was with the Secret Service 12 years, the NYPD for 4. I always wanted to be a doctor. My dad had pushed me into law enforcement. I love my father, but he had scoliosis, wanted to be an FBI agent. And once I wound up with the Secret Service, I figured, well, I'll take the MCATs, which I did rather well, but never left and spent a lot of time in the Secret Service. I resigned to do this. I didn't retire. I left everything behind, my pension, my health care, because that passion was with me my entire life. And like I said to the listeners before, life's about doing. It's not about talking. And if you're not willing to take a chance and dive into the ether, those of us who are crazy enough to think we're going to change the world usually do. And when they told us we had no chance of winning the primary, we won. We beat 9 other people. We won by 6 points. They told us we had no chance of raising any money. We just surpassed nearly $500,000 in funds raised. We had our best fundraising week ever, and we're down to almost a 1-for-1 fundraising status with our opponent. They said we'd never have a chance. We're down right now in a very competitive 8 to 12-point race. My opponent's a 45-year incumbent, and everything's going in our direction. And it's been a year and a half of really hard work. But it's worth it, folks. This is too important an election to sit on your hands.
So Governor Palin mentions you. Do you feel an endorsement may be coming your way from Alaska?
That would be terrific. I would be shocked. We've had some good ones. They've all been surprises. Senator Mike Lee from Utah, that kind of came out of nowhere. I met him in Israel. We had a great conversation. We were at a dinner table with a number of Israeli officials and some other folks, and that came out of nowhere. We got into a conversation about Friedrich Hayek. I came back, we met, and he called me on my home phone at 11 o'clock at night and changed my life about a year ago. He really put us on the map. So, yeah, that would be fantastic. I was really deeply honored that she mentioned my speech. You have to put it in perspective for me. Just a few years back, I was protecting people like Governor Palin. That was my job. And now to be mentioned in a pretty prominent speech for a fantastic Senate candidate in Texas, Ted Cruz, was a great honor. That for a normal guy like me is a very humbling and moving experience. I really hope that at some point in your life everyone gets to have an experience like that. It was fantastic.
Well, sir, it is a pleasure to talk to you. You're a great American, and we thank you for all your Secret Service work, your NYPD work, and we wish you the best of luck in this race. What's your website?
Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. My website's Bongino, Bongino.com, and you can follow us on Facebook at Bongino for Senate, and I'm at DBongino at Twitter, and that's all my writing. I don't have a social media consultant. I don't believe in that.
Excellent. And hey, who knows, the guys from One Direction might friend you now, too.
I'm a little embarrassed I didn't know. So
that's all right.
Some hate mail.
Listen, when your daughters get a little older, they'll probably be, we'll have someone new on the horizon by then, but...
Good copy on that. You're absolutely right.
Well, Dad, listen, thanks again, and I hope we talk again after a big victory and we stun everybody.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Head over to Bongino.com. That's Bongino.com. And if you haven't seen the video of Dan's speech yet, check it out right at saranet.net. It is really worth your while. And again, Mr. Bongino's website, Bongino.com. Folks, remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Saranet Radio, and we are now on Facebook, too, so please like Saranet Radio on Facebook. And don't forget, the Palin Update is now on demand, so just head to SaraNetRadio.net, pick the program you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this special edition of the Palin Update on SaraNet Radio. Visit SaraNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. I want to thank everyone here at SaraNet Radio. Thanks to Dan Bongino, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.